Stephen Stephen is requesting to be admitted. So 1 wee second. I was just going to say that Mayleen is a nephrologist practicing in the Philippines. And basically, she's been in active clinical practice since 1998, whenever she graduated from New York Medical College. She discovered a love of art later in life, initially through adult coloring books, and through the encouragement of friends began to draw and paint her own work. Her artwork has been featured on the cover of the American Journal of Kidney Diseases and other academic journals. So I think we probably are mostly familiar with Mayleen's work, but I'll just hand over to Mayleen now, if that's okay, if you want to share your screen, Mayleen.
Okay. Hold on. 1 minute.
Stephen, can you hear us okay? Because I think you're trying to join on another device.
Hi, let's come on the phone just.
Can you hear okay now then, Stephen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to share screen now.
Okay,
Brilliant.
Mayleen, thank you.
Okay, can everybody see?
Yes, lovely.
Yes, okay. Good evening, and good evening or good noon, everyone. Welcome to this session of the Renal Arts Group Summer Paint Series. Now, in this session, I'm just gonna go through how I mix science and art, or art and science, and what inspires this type of work, and how I go about doing the paintings, and as well as what is the impact of this type of work to society and to other people. So I hope you will just enjoy the slideshow, but I will also explain while I am doing the presentation. Okay, let me just turn on my pointer. Okay. So I tried to find a way to explain what is exactly the relationship between science and art. And I got this very nice quote and from Jean Cocteau. And it says, art is science made clear. So essentially in those few words, actually it really describes what motivates me. Because when I do my artwork, it's really to make whatever is scientific clearer and more beautiful. So this particular quote really describes science and art together. Now, one of the people that also inspired me a lot, even before I started art, is Steve Jobs. He was described by the author V. Rajamaran as an aesthete who instinctively blended art with technology. And with that, you can see that science can be made beautiful. So his products like the iPhone, the iPod, the MacBook, all very beautiful, yet very technologically advanced gadgets. So definitely art and science can marry and be blended together. Now, when I started my art, I have to have some inspiration or who to be inspired from or learn from. So some of my inspirations are these people, Joanna Basford, who made coloring books, adult coloring books by pencil and ink drawings. She's British, I think. And then Chihiro Pierce is Japanese, but she lives in Alaska, and she makes very beautiful watercolors as well of flowers, floral. And then there's Anna Bucciarelli. She's Canadian, and she really does also very beautiful, very nice color palettes with her floral artwork. And then we have Anna Mason. Anna Mason is, I think, also British, and very, very beautiful, realistic floral watercolor paintings. And of course, last but not the least, BTS. They're a boy group from South Korea, and I am mainly inspired by the lyrics in their songs and by the hard work that they do. So these are really the inspirations for me when I do my art. So in the early times, I really did not realize that there is a purpose to making scientific pictures look like art. For me, it was just trying to draw something and then, making something beautiful. So, and then finally, one day I was told by the Philippine Society of Nephrology group here in Cebu City, when they saw this drawing, to make it into a special drawing for Kidney Month, which we celebrate every June. And then they said, why don't you add a message to this particular drawing? So then that's when I added the words, love your kidneys. And that is how I realized that art actually is a means of communicating to everybody, to the population and to the patients and to society. So that is how I started realizing the importance of this, of what making science beautiful. So my first watercolor was a heart. It is anatomically following the heart. If you look at this, these are the ventricles, and then you have the atria, and then you have the aorta, and then you will have the inferior vena cava. So I try to make it scientifically correct, at the same time artistic. And in my paintings, I always just use florals, flower, plants, stems, twigs, to represent various organ or parts of the organ. I don't make realistic organ drawings. I make it into floral representation. So this is another later work in watercolor, also of the heart. So it's a little bit more defined now with the previous one. So after that, I progressed to other things. And then I realized I'm a nephrologist, so I was really drawn to the kidney. So this particular painting, which is an acrylic painting, actually shows the renal cortex, the renal medulla, the renal pelvis, and the ureter. So if I'm going to point at these structures, they're really there. So renal cortex, medulla, pelvis, and ureter. And because of that, a lot of the people I work with wanted this in their offices now, because it really, it's interesting for their patients and for themselves. They found a different way of being able to show to their patients the structure of the organ that is not so depressing, because comfort is, flowers are always hopeful and comforting. So that is an example of an anatomically correct kidney. And then later on, I really like painting kidneys. So it was all different types of kidneys now. And I just represent each structure of the kidney differently. So this one is really more showing the cortex, the medulla, the pelvis, the same thing. But the other kidney, I showed it as a gross anatomy, like not cross-section. This one shows the kidneys, but this time together with the blood vessels. So if you look, this is the aorta, and this is the inferior vena cava. So, and then this is a transplant painting. So I had to put the allograft here, and this flower here represents the urinary bladder. So again, this is mixing art and science. And then I also wanted to really show, like, sometimes my brain just starts thinking about other things. So I said, why not go more microscopic? So then I started painting glomeruli. So this is a glomerulus. This is I really represented the arterioles by using the trumpet flowers. So this is the afferent and the efferent arteriole. And if you look at the flowers here, where they enter, they are dirty. And then as they go through the filter, they become cleaner. So it's like I mix the physiology with anatomy. And then this is now the proximal tubule and then the Bowman's capsule. So this painting was actually bought at an exhibit by a nephrologist. And then I also do digital art lately, so it's much more easier now. So the same, this is another glomerulus painting. And then you have a nephron. So this is a nephron showing the glomerulus, and then the proximal tubule, the loop of Henle, the distal, and the distal convoluted tubule, and finally the collecting tubule. So if this one was actually requested by the Philippine Society of Nephrology for the convention. So these are now the microscopic structures in the kidney. My husband always says that nobody will understand your paintings because they look like weird paintings. But then I said the people who are interested will understand the painting, so it's okay. So this one is now going microscopic. So these are urinary crystals, so which I did in watercolor. And then this one actually urinary sediments. And then this includes bacteria. So you have the staph and you have the E. coli and then sediments. So it's like a mix. It's something you see in a urinalysis. And then we have the glomerular disease. This one represents membranoproliferative GN, which actually shows the different stages of the disease. If you look at the parts of the pollen part, it stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and finally stage 4. So this one was also bought by a nephrologist. And then this one represents the different types of microscopy that we use when we do a renal biopsy. So this is the light microscopy, immunofluorescence, electron microscopy. So all of those are, this is an acrylic painting. And then finally an electron microscopy painting. So it is, that's why it's very brilliant, because it's immunofluorescence. So this one is part of a sketchbook that I submitted to the Brooklyn Art Library, but apparently the library burned because they were on tour and the van burned, and now they could not trace the sketchbook. So anyway, so these ones are also microscopic structures. And then renal disease and art. So what inspires me to do the renal disease part is really the patient. So when I see a patient and I imagine how it would look if I do a painting of their disease. So this one I already mentioned is membranoproliferative. And then this one is minimal change, meaning there's really nothing wrong with the glomerular structures. And then this one represents FSGS. There are different types of FSGS. There are type 4, so I made them look like aliens. And then we have the IgA nephropathy, which is mesangial. And then you have the dense deposit disease, wherein the glomerular basement membranes are really very thickened. So if you're not a nephrologist, you would just think that these are actually aliens coming to visit. But if you're a nephrologist, you'll probably be able to, or a renal healthcare person, you'll probably be able to figure it out. So that's what I want, that the paintings do not really, like it has dual purpose. If you're not a doctor, then you can still appreciate it. So this one are the other kidney diseases. So these are kidneys with stones. So this one is a cyst. Then you have the ADPKD, which is autosomal dominant polycystic kidneys. And then these are actually stones in the kidney. Another ADPKD kidney. And then this one is a stone, and then also the stone. And most of these are actually inspired by patients. So this one is a stone and there's an obstruction. So that's why this ureter is bigger than the other side. So usually when I do clinic in the morning and then in the evening, I paint the whatever I encounter in my clinic. So chronic kidney disease, one of the most important cause of end-stage kidney disease. Essentially, chronic kidney disease can progress to renal failure. So that's a very important messaging. What we want to really see in this particular painting is to stop the CKD from going. So this is a person in very on a tightrope already. He's still trying desperately to stop his failing kidney to reach kidney failure. And then the other one is a small kidney, another risk factor for CKD when you have only one working kidney. So this one usually I show to the patients, and they seem to understand better when it is given that way. And then kidney transplant, another very favorite topic of mine to paint. So this one's the one you saw already. And then when I went into digital art, I discovered it's so easy now to paint because you do not have materials. You just have your iPad and Apple Pencil. So this one, I painted a patient whose original kidneys have failed, and that's why they're white. And then the first transplant, or we call the allograft, also failed. Now it became white. And finally, there's a second transplant. So a second allograft, and now the patient is doing good because now there's urine coming from the second transplant. And then we have a patient who's undergoing rejection. So the way I represented the rejection is a very red kidney, very red, very inflamed. And then this is the urine also has some blood. So that is how I represented acute rejection. Dialysis, another very nice topic to paint. So this one is digital art, and I just showed the circuit of how dialysis actually is performed, and together with the dialyzer and then the dialysate. So this one I can show to the patients, and they understand, they seem to appreciate it better. This one is just an artistic representation of what happens in dialysis, that essentially blood is poured through the filter, and when they come out, the dirty flowers actually then become very nice and clean. So it's just to represent, and there's a water source here where the water can come in. And then we have peritoneal dialysis. That one is a very hard concept to make artistic. So what I did is the title of this is Dialysis in the Jungle. So this is a patient who has PD, and this is the venous flytrap where the dialysate goes into the belly, and then it's being drained by the coconut shell. So when I posted this, I wrote that if Tarzan needed dialysis, it would probably look like this in peritoneal dialysis. So these paintings are now with other nephrologists. Then I also like painting other kidney diseases, representing them as beautiful flowers. So this one represents acute kidney injury, wherein time really matters. So from normal, and then if it's not addressed, then the kidney gets paler and paler, and finally failure. So you really want to stop that from happening. And then this one is renal agenesis, like one of the kidneys is not there. So this is actually inspired by a patient that I actually saw in the clinic. And then malrotated kidneys. If you look at this, kidney is normal, the other one is facing the wrong way. And then you have the horseshoe kidneys, very common also. So when the two kidneys are fused together. And then we have the patients who have stones, and they need what is called stent to relieve the obstruction. So I made the stent orange to emphasize that that is the message of this painting. And then this one was requested by a mother of a 3-year-old who had a colonic colovesical fistula. That happens when there's connection between the intestine and the urinary bladder. And because of that, there's repeated infection of the kidney. So this 1-year-old baby is now on dialysis. So the mother requested for a painting for the doctor. And then this one also requested by a mother whose child, a 3-year-old, had urinary duplication of ureters, also going to undergo surgery. So they usually request for their doctors to give us gifts. And then this one I like painting kidneys with other organs. So this one shows a pregnant uterus and how it obstructs the ureter. And then, of course, cardiorenal syndrome, very important and very common disease, actually. The heart and the kidneys are closely related. Then this one is a pulmonary renal syndrome, lungs and kidneys. This one is brain and kidneys. This one is liver and kidneys, the hepatorenal syndrome. This one was requested by a nephrologist. This is a kidney surrounded by the skin. So if you closely look at the heart, actually it represents epidermis, subcutaneous, and the lower portion of the skin, hypodermis. But this one, the husband is a dermatologist, the wife is a nephrologist. So that's how I gave her the painting. So I also like painting other organs. So this is heart, the eye, then we have the liver and the gallbladder, and then the GI tract, lungs, and brain. So all of these are in the offices of doctors, and they always say that patients appreciate it, that they see another way of showing the organ rather than the usual anatomical drawing or sketch. And then the human body, this one is now in a gross anatomy laboratory here in Cebu City. This was also commissioned, and they wanted it for the students to get inspired, to think out of the box and be more artistic with their studies of medicine. This one is an MRI representation of brain and spinal cord. So I did it all in black and white tones and gray. And this one was requested by Department of Internal Medicine. I wanted it more artistic because the training officer of the department wanted something that will uplift the spirits of their residents after they're so tired. So I made it a dating couple. And then this one is a baby with a leaf, and this is actually requested by a neonat. So this is now in the office of the neonatologist. So basically, the bottom line of doing this science and art is really for the messaging. So as I said, the first inspiration was the Love Your Kidneys for the June Kidney Month. And then after that, I represent it, but I try to do it without words. If you notice, all the paintings are without words, that look at it, you understand. So this one represents renal health. This one represents nutrition. This one is hydration because it's very hot. So you encourage hydration for patients. And then donate, requested by someone from Turkey. So they wanted a poster for organ donation. And then this one's my latest one, represents one of a young girl who's kidney failure. And then there's this young gentleman who's donating his kidney, so organ transplantation. This one is a patient who received transplant. And then after she received her transplant, she was very kind already. She donated so much already to the hospital where she had her transplant. So I titled this the Pay It Forward painting. And then this one is for family medicine and health. So I use different mediums in the art. So if you notice, this is the earlier ones with a pencil and colored pencils and pen. And then watercolors. This one is the kidney that was published in a few words in AJKD. And then this one is actually hematology. If you look at the blood cells, the center of the flowers represent different types of blood cells. And that is already with a hematologist also. And then this one is for an ophthalmologist. So sometimes I draw and then they ask, or sometimes they request and then I draw. So it's like that. So another medium, my favorite is, one of my favorite is acrylic, especially on the black canvas. It really makes the image very clear. So this one is the parathyroid axis, thyroid axis. This is now in the UPPGH, which is the foremost university here in the Philippines in their endocrinology section. And then GI tract, heart, eyes, lungs, liver, and stomach, and the kidneys. So gouache, I did try, but it's quite difficult. I think gouache is better with flower fields. And then you have the digital art, so which I discovered only, I think, a year ago. And since then, I've made many types of digital art. This one is inspired by the movie, the Avatar, the waterways, something like that. Then this one is lungs. This one is nutrition. This one is heart. And this one's the glomerulus that I show. Sometimes I don't have any theme, so I just like to paint kidneys. So that's why I titled this particular slide, Just Pretty Kidneys. Nothing, there's no theme there, but sometimes I just like painting kidneys. Okay, so what are now my favorite paintings? Of course, the painting that got published in the cover of the American Journal of Kidney Diseases. After this was published, I said I can die tomorrow and I'm fine. So this is a very important or significant achievement for me. So this inspired me to really paint more. And then you have this painting, also very important because a lot of people really appreciate this. It's a little girl or a woman who received a transplant and is now living her life normally, swinging under her dead kidneys. And this was actually made into a transplant brochure somewhere in India. I just don't forget, I forgot the city, but they made this as the cover of their brochure. But the actual painting belongs to a nephrologist here in the Philippines. And then my other favorites, this one is used by RAG. So it's very important also for the science poster. And then the eye, very popular in my Etsy shop, this eye. So many people like to download it. And then this painting, also very nice, this one. And then this one is, I like it because I discovered a new style that actually represents the pulmonary renal syndrome. Actually inspired by an actual patient of mine, still in the hospital, in the ICU now. He has pulmonary renal syndrome. And then what is the impact on society? So a lot of my friends now have my paintings in their offices and their clinics. And this one's infectious disease specialist. So these are all the parasites and the bacteria. She is an endocrinologist. She's a pulmonary specialist, and she is a cardiologist, so cardiorenal. And then also being able to participate in exhibits, particularly when the exhibit is for charity. So usually a major portion of the proceeds go to the hospital or to the charity, and then only a little bit to the artist. So I joined charity exhibits, and this one is for the Philippine Society of Nephrology Convention. And in this one also, majority of my profits from the sales went to the PSN for the projects of PSN. So it's something you have fun with, at the same time being able to help other people. Then medical education. So this one, as I said, was already in the laboratory in CIM, the Cebu Institute of Medicine. And then this one, actually, this was just 2 days ago when I learned that this logo is now used for the Kidney International reports by their interns who are social media interns. So I'm happy that they chose that. And then other publications. So this is the, in a few words, with my watercolor kidney. And the message of this publication is that with this kidney, we were able to make neck pillows designed with this kidney for our dialysis patients. And then this one is a healing art, how art actually comforts patients. The most memorable for me is a mother who requested for a kidney painting for her son, who was a physician, a 28-year-old physician. Then he died. He had a cardiac arrest in the dialysis unit. And what was so touching was, in his way, they even display my painting there right beside his coffin. And then she was carrying the painting all the way to the columbarium where the son was buried. So that one, so really was touching. And then for the Philippine Society of Nephrology, they actually featured me in the coffee table book entitled The Pure Vintage book launch. So this one was for colleagues. I also make paintings for colleagues, not necessarily nephrology, but you know, something that they request for. Like this one's requesting, like at the end of the day, he just wants to stare at the sky. So I made that one. And then for conventions, I have been asked to make, when you give speakers a token. Yeah, so I made tokens for speakers. This one owns the Bose coffee shop here in Cebu. That's why it's coffee and kidney. I also make the painting match the speaker's characteristic. This one is for an OBGYN. That's why there's a baby there with a leaf. And this one's for our PSN convention. And then for advocacy, my favorite is organ donation. So a lot of my digital paintings are really organ donation, because I think organ donation really matters, and it really saves, improves the quality of life of the patient. So these are all organ donation themed. This one is just a week ago when Jungkook released his 7, so that's why it looks like Jungkook and Han So-hee. his partner in the music video. And this is her kidneys have failed, so now he's offering the sunflowers shaped like a kidney. So this one's inspired by the Little Mermaid, and then just anything. This is inspired by BTS. This one, the whale with the kidney. So who are the people to thank for all this? The patients, of course, they are the #1 source of inspiration. And then my colleagues, those that appreciate really my art and encourage me to continue. And then, of course, family and friends. And then social media, the Instagram, I get encouraged all the time, and there's comments on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. And then, of course, the PSN, who's allowed me to really share my talent with the society. And of course, the Renal Arts Group. So for allowing me to also share my talent and also present in this summer paint series. I think that's the last slide for the presentation. Should I stop sharing now? Okay, finish.
Thank you so much, Mayleen.
Thank you.
That was just brilliant.
Thank you so much also.
Riveting. That's all I can say. And it's just so amazing how much work you're able to produce. It just flows from you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I can
actually I've
see.
been doing it for 5 years, 2017. Oh, 6 years already.
Yeah.
So,
But I see you on Instagram and there's new paintings constantly coming. It's just amazing that you're able
it's
to
every
create.
other day, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is just so amazing that you have that creative ability. It's just fascinating and just so beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing that presentation this morning. So we've got time for questions if anyone's got any questions. Stephen?
What should you just say on Instagram, or what's your link? What's your page on Instagram?
At nephro_art.
What, sorry?
nephro_art.
I'll
That's
put it into the chat.
Yeah. No, that was absolutely brilliant. You've got my head going like mad.
Yeah. I know. Oh, it's not NephroArt. Sorry, did it wrong.
nephro_art. No, not nephro.
No,
All right.
sorry. Nephro.
Yeah.
I had a question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So, Mayleen, you mentioned that you use art as a way of communicating with patients. And
Yes.
there's a couple of things that came to my mind. Firstly is how, and you've said that it has actually helped patients understand different stages or different processes. So could you say a little bit more about the impact that has had on patients? And then secondly, from like a consultation point of view, do you have to, I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm just a carer for my family member, but is there like the hospital process? Do they have any like process or regulation that you cannot like use other ways of communicating? You have to stick to facts? Because I think in like perhaps in an English or a British context, there is a lot of, I imagine there's probably red tape about what you can say and what you can't say to a patient. So I just wondered if you could say a bit about that.
So what I actually do, especially in the outpatient, it's usually in the outpatient. I, of course, explain the scientific part first. And I make scientific drawings. So if they do have, let's say, stone, I actually draw the real kidney with the real pelvis and the real stone. And then after they see that and they appreciate that, and I said, you know, artistically, it could look like this. You see the flowers. So I always start with a scientific. So with dialysis, I draw the actual dialysis machine, the dialyzer. Some of them will even ask for the drawing. So the dialyzer with their arm and then there. And then later I show the artistic part of it. Then I said it can be beautiful. So the acute kidney injury is very difficult to explain to patients. So what I show is that your kidneys are going to get is undergoing a process where it's being damaged because of either your blood pressure is low, or you have having infection and all these things, or dehydration. And if you don't take care, or if you don't fix these kidneys, then it can become permanent. And then I show the AKI picture. You see this one, it's getting paler and paler. So that's how I do it. So, and also in the Philippines, there's really nothing, there's no strict regulation.
Is it normal to use diagrams to help patients understand?
It depends on the doctor.
Okay.
Some doctors will bring around their iPad they show the actual anatomy.
Mhm.
What I do is I get paper and pen and draw the actual anatomy or the actual disease process. And then later the art comes, so that after they see the bad news, that you give them a nice painting to see, and then they become happy. Not so bad. It softens the blow sometimes. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question.
Yes, Jill.
Thank you. Mayleen, that was just amazing. I'm just sort of going, wow. Like Helen, the amount of work that you've produced is just astounding. So I'm so glad that just seeing that creative element that just flows from it. It's so wonderful. Thank you. And I have two questions. Do you have any prints of your work that we can purchase? I just want our waiting room and my counselling room to have this art in it. I just know that I do. So if there's any way that we can, the trust can buy your work, I'd be very interested to know. And the second thing, do you have a book of your work? Because I would find that very useful for my work as a psychotherapist to explain some of these kidney diseases. I also use pen and paper and drawing, and I'd like to have your images alongside other images that I use.
So for the first, thank you very much for appreciating my art. So for the first question, I have an Etsy shop, but only very few paintings are there. You can buy the painting as a digital download in the Etsy shop. But if you have a specific design that you like, especially the digital art, you can just send me your email address and I will send you the high resolution file. My digital prints are not expensive. You can just pay me in PayPal, and usually it's around $15 to $20 only for the digital high resolution file. Now, I had a urologist who really printed them in very large prints, very beautiful. You can easily print them in the Costco or Walmart, the big print shops. And it came out in his office very huge and very nice. And then for the second question with a book, I have no time yet to do that. So I really never, in fact, this is the first time I classified all my paintings in such an organized way. So I have not thought of that yet. Maybe in the future, yes, because a lot of people actually told me, but then I had no time yet. My schedule just freed up this year. I was also involved in our society. I was an accreditation board for the training programs, and I was also in the specialty board, the one that gives the exam, and the board of trustees. So that was all of until April of this year. So now I have more time. Maybe I'll think about we can work together to make a book.
Can I just add in there, I'm looking on your Instagram page, Mayleen. So when you go to Mayleen's Instagram page, there's a link to the Etsy shop. And when you go to the Etsy shop, you can just download the paintings. You know, the first ones here, it's €7.38. They're very reasonable, Mayleen. They really are.
Yes, the Etsy shop, it's really very cheap because these are digital prints.
I know, you make it sound so easy, and I'm sure it's not. You have to have the creative force behind it.
Yeah, actually, the most difficult part is the conceptualization. How do you bring that message, and how do you make it attractive? That is the hard part. Once I have it in my brain, then I draw it onto the canvas or onto the iPad. That's the easy part already. It's the what to put and how to give the message. That's the hard part, actually. 90% of the difficulty is there.
Hattie's just added the Etsy link, so thank you so much, Hattie.
Thank you.
And Kelsey's asked if there's any observation or research about how consultants communicate to patients, especially those that have limited language. So I think, Kelsey, that's a whole other topic, isn't it? And something that will have some research behind it. But we know that we don't communicate as well as we could with a lot of people, particularly those from ethnic minorities. And it's one of the things from a research perspective, that we want to improve as well. And I think most researchers are trying to think about how do we engage all of our populations and don't leave anyone out. So it is a whole area of interest.
Yeah.
I
think artistic.
Sorry,
just going to say, in artistic ways of doing that, Mayleen's works obviously demonstrates that it's possible.
And when I heard Mayleen say that, I did think, wow, that's wonderful. We can use these paintings to help people understand what's going on in their kidneys. Because I think sometimes you hear these very dry explanations and they mean nothing. So it's
what
great.
I discovered is the family also appreciates. Actually, the family is the one who's really more appreciative.
Yeah. Claire has just said she really enjoyed hearing about your work, Mayleen, and she loves how you and peers have used artwork to explain kidney disease. They're so colourful, attractive, much friendlier than scientific imagery. I agree. Well, thank you, Claire. I know you've got to head off now, so thank you for joining. And I suppose that leads on to my next question, Mayleen, is around you thinking about maybe writing about this in maybe an article for a journal such as Medical Illustrations. I know that when we did one of our art projects, Claire Carswell, who's an artist as well, she published some of her work in Medical Illustrations. I think she just did a description around the work that she does and got it published. So be very willing to work with you on that, Mayleen, if you were interested, just to get that work shared across the world.
Yes, I'm interested in that. Sure. I will look into it, the Medical Illustrations, right?
Yeah, I think there's a Medical Illustrations journal. I'll have a little look at where Claire published as well. It wasn't too difficult to get published, actually.
Yes, because I really want to encourage people to appreciate art in a scientific and art, science and art, and also to encourage those who have potential to be artists, to also be expressive.
Yes. People are always scared, aren't they, and think that they're not good enough and they can't be an artist, or never be an artist when people can.
Right that way, the fellows, some of the residents and the fellows, they ask me, and then they want to copy what I do. Then I said, no, you have to be more original. Even if it's ugly, as long as it's original, then that's more appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Alexander has his hand up there, Helen, sorry.
Yeah, who's that? Alexander. Hello, Alexander.
Hello, I'm a nephrologist from Preston. I'm a great admirer of your work. I just wanted to say I can help with getting something published because I sit on the editorial board of Clinical Kidney Journal as an associate editor, and I would love to write an editorial with you about what the arts can give us in nephrology to us and our patients. And I will be definitely buying off your Etsy shop and have some of your work in my consulting rooms.
That would be fantastic, Alexander. Thank you. It'd be great to get
very much
the work out and shared so that people know what's available and what can actually be achieved. So that's a really fantastic.
I also love the idea of using the artworks to help explain conditions to patients. I think that's a fantastic thought.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, if you I can share my email address as well, so that because sometimes it's hard to communicate through social media. Yeah, I'm interested. So I'll put my email address here in the messages as well. Thank you so much.
That's fantastic. Okay.
I
And
think I have.
Alexandra, maybe you could put your email into the chat as well, and we can
Yes,
get
I am.
contact with you. Thank you.
Yes.
Stephen?
That's actually giving me a really good idea. And what we could do for some of the things that we said about coming up for Kidney Week next week or next year, the renal artist could maybe put an exhibition together and reasonable money for Kidney Week, obviously. So it's good, but I think if we all came together and got our heads down and started working, it gives us a year to work on it. So I think we could come up. There was a way she was saying about the charity they've done over there and then most of the money goes to the charity, and then the artists get a bit, to cover costs and stuff. But I think we have enough artists to get something put together and do an exhibition for Kidney Week.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll be guided by you. No problem.
No
I
problem
think
at all.
everyone's enthusiastic.
Just give me a couple of ideas for me when exhibition, so only 2 weeks to get it done. So it's going flat out. But no, it's absolutely brilliant workshop. Thank you very much.
It really is really interesting.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Mayleen,
Sorry.
Suzanne, yes, sorry.
hi, Mayleen. Now, thank you so much for that. It was so interesting and so it's powerful. What you do. I was going to see if we could share this link with the young adults, because here every year the young adult kidney community, we fund them to go up to Derbyshire for a weekend away, and they also have their own arts and crafts sessions. And sharing this sort of link with Inspire, because some of them are such great artists anyway, but to share such a positive way of thinking about their kidneys would be lovely, because they do draw and they make earrings of kidneys and everything, but yours is so uplifting. Being able to share this link maybe, so that before they go, if we could do that, I think that would be so powerful for them.
Sure, you can share. It's okay to even share the recording. Yes. So that more people can appreciate and also be inspired.
Yes, they would be, as I say, and it's such a positive way of thinking about their kidneys and the condition that they've got, rather than it be, usually their drawings are quite flat, and it's because what they're dealing with, but yours is quite uplifting and positive. So thank you. Maybe we could share that. Tricia, I'll talk to you afterwards, maybe.
Well, that's a great idea, Suzanne. And Mayleen, we always want to say thank you for all that you share, because you are so giving of your work, and we have used some of your work in our logos, and again, we're just so grateful. So thank you. And if you're happy to share what's been presented today, that's just brilliant. So thank you.
I'm always willing to share. That's what inspires me to do more work.
Oh, it's very inspirational.
Sharing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
And for the children, I always include the youth. If you notice, for the organ transplant, these are young. I show young people. Yeah, so that is one. Also the adolescent and the children.
Yeah, really helpful for children. Children and adults alike, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I see we're nearly at 2 o'clock. So unless there are any other questions, we will make the link available. Alexandra, we will get in touch with you. Stephen, we can talk about the idea of an exhibition at the Renal Arts Group. You're all very welcome to join us at the Renal Arts Group and drop into any meetings that we have. But yeah, lots going on, and it's always really great to see this field just building momentum. So yeah, great to be part of it. But thank you to all of you. We couldn't do any of it without you. So thank you all so much. And Tricia, did you want to say anything about maybe our next?
Yes, I was going to say I'm going to be sending around probably this afternoon a wee feedback form. It'll take literally 2 or 3 minutes to fill it out online, if that's okay. And then there's going to be another workshop, the third and final of our Paint Summer series, on the 22nd of August, and that's going to be with Jenny Baxley Lee and Sarah Hines from Florida, from the University of Florida, and it's going to be an hour-long workshop and presentation from both of them. So I'll send you a bit more details about that. And if anybody who isn't part of the Renal Arts Group would like to become part of the Renal Arts Group, or would like to be invited to that workshop or register, just drop me a line. I think you all have my details because you all registered through emailing me. So thank you so much, Mayleen, and thanks for attending.
And I really recommend that next session. I think it's going to be as good as Mayleen's session. They all are, aren't they, Trisha? But Jenny Baxley-Lee is very special and has been a member of the Renal Arts Group since its inception. Alexander, you asked about our Instagram account, and we do, but I can't remember is it Anna or Trisha? Do you know what the Instagram account name is?
I've just put it in the chat there. It's Renal Arts Group QUB.
Thank you so much.
And Kaiser's asking what time will the next session be? That's 1 o'clock. No, 1:30. 1:30, I think, but I'll send you details, Kaiser. Okay.
Great. Well, we've covered a lot in the chat there. So do have a little look back. And just to say thank you again for your time and giving of your time. Thank you, Mayleen, so much for such an inspirational talk. It really was. And yeah, I think we're all just amazed at what you have achieved. Just keep churning it out is all I can say, which I know you will.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you all so much. Take care. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.